Hello SGD, this will be a video about vase making, ancient stone vessel making in Egypt, well, Uruk, obviously not Egypt, but that's a good starting point because there's some interesting information there. To all the people viewing the channel, to the members of the channel, apologies, I've just been living in real life, so to speak. But anyway, stone vase making, stone vessel making, Waka vase, alabaster from Uruk. 3,000 to 3,000. So this is just an example. Now I want to bring up the Bois monument here. It's made in gypsum from the same place, relatively the same time. For a while the authenticity was disputed, though in recent decades it's been more accepted. And what we have here is actually an interesting scene when we compare these later. So we get a better view here, and we want to look at the bottom right, because what we have is probably the oldest depiction of stone vessel, stone vase making in there. Now we'll come back to this in a moment because it might not be obvious, but we'll focus on that one. Okay, now let's go forward. Now Gardner's sign list. They talk about the stonemason's drill, the hieroglyph for that, and we see two versions there, and we'll just show those together. So what we have, one is with the weight on top seems to be a single piece. This one we'll see better pictures of. This is exactly the same type of crank handle flywheel drill. I'll link it in the description because there's a paper, we'll come to that, but the Dennis Stocks is famous for this, but I think Scientists Against Smith really showed how this tool was properly used. It's been the way that I've done it in my experiments. There'll be a lot of links in the description in regards to that, but let's look at one of the oldest one that I know of these vase making scenes. And here it is. We see the illustration on top just to make it a little bit clearer, and you can see the tool that they're using. We'll have, so tomb 920 at Saqqara, said to be 5th dynasty, Old Kingdom, so very, very old. And the types and shapes of stone vessels there match those found in places such as the stepped pyramid. We see various types of those. Now what's important about it, and so I've shown each one above. Now firstly, that this type, it's a Dennis Stocks says that the weight was only there to put force weight down, not to help the drill spin. I would disagree. Again, the Scientists Against Smith, if you've seen them drilling in granite, or again lots and lots of hours you can watch me drill with this type of tool in granite and basalt and other stones as well, making perfectly round parallels and all these types of things. So a lot of people, but the precision, look, no, it's been shown. I now have the material and the time to make a vase, but all of the parts used needed to create a precise, parallel, perfectly round vase I have physically demonstrated, and they can be repeated. And so it's not really, the people asking the question should actually get involved in doing this. But anyway, precision can absolutely be achieved by this. Now before we go any further, because I know this is going to be the precision, here's a logical question which simply destroys that. Now if it requires a modern precision machine, how the hell were modern precision machines made? Did they appear magically from the ground, or were they made by hand? Are the tools used to calibrate precision instruments still made by hand today? Yes, the answer is yes to all of those. You absolutely can. It's a silly question, and for all of the aerospace, I'm an expert CNC guys. I'm just going to say, learn the history of your own trade, because you might know how to operate these tools really well, a whole lot better than me. I wouldn't tell you how to operate them, but the history of them, either they were magically sprouted from the ground like mushrooms or something, or they were made before such precision existed, and therefore you absolutely can do this without modern tools. If you could not, modern precision tools wouldn't exist. Done, finished. Okay, so now the tool that they use, there we have the weight is basically stones tied to there. And you also get an idea of one of the ways to attach drill bits. But the important part, and this is what I learnt through experimentation, I probably wouldn't have picked it up otherwise, is that these drills have detachable handles. We'll see that. We'll come back to that. Because what I found is that I found the right stick to use as a handle, and I got used to my weight, and I didn't like changing it. Anyone who's worked in trades know that you don't want the best fancy new hammer. You want that hammer that you've used, and you know the weight, you know the balance, and you can feel the tool. It's, you know, it's like a swordsman, samurai. You know, he knows his sword. He knows every little nuance of it, and that's, again, anyone who's worked with tools, you know what I'm talking about. So they would change the handle. Not change the handle or make a new tool for each step, but it becomes replace. You know, you can change the head. So if you're drilling a findle hole, same tool, just attach a new handle onto it. This is from excavations near the Teddy Pyramid, north side, in Quibble. Quibble was also this. Sorry, I should get back to it now. The piece number is JE39866, and this photo is a screenshot from a video that someone sent to me from the Satire Museum. A lot of the sources listed as being in the Cairo Museum, but at least now it's in the Saqqara Museum. So we have all types of stone vessels being made, and we see the tool being used. Now here we have a 3D model. This is the box that was found. This included this box of small tools. But what we have is this fella here. Now, in some of it, especially the early literature, this is described as him drilling a hole in wood because it's part of a craftsman workshop. But other people have interpreted that he's working a stone vessel. It's neither really here nor there because that tool works stone vessels, and it actually, it looks more like he's working those. Even some people said that there's a representation of a pile of sand there next to the guy working this drill. Again, the crank handle, the weight. So unlike Egyptians always drew profile, but here we have a 3D view. Tomb of Mekhetre, TT280. Okay, so we see illustration there from the side. So you see the photo, but also from the side to give a better idea. And if we just quickly skip back to the Bois monument, and there we can see, and now it makes a lot more sense. Okay, now we go forward. This is a now it's Old Kingdom. It's been described, and it's popular account of ancient Egyptians. Sir John Gardner Wilkinson. I got his book. I went through it, and maybe I was missing it, but I couldn't find it in there. Maybe it was a different volume or whatever. Now I'm not sure exactly. I'm including it. It might be a little bit later, it might be a little bit earlier, but again, it's the same thing. And also note that these people are sitting down or kneeling operating this tool, as where other depictions have them standing up, which is also an important difference. Again, I've drilled a hell of a lot of hours making granite cores, stone vessels, and things now, and I know that through experience, there's only really way to look. There are new. I like to sit down doing it. I find it more comfortable. Tomb of Rekhmire. This is a very important tomb in this particular scene. Is very important because although it's 1400 BC, it is a showcase of primitive, ancient, pre-dynastic technologies, including tanning. Carpentry skills. Also it includes copper making and the furnaces and that type of, and these are all things which have been around a long time, but very important is because this showcases it and sort of puts it in the perspective that it's a workshop. It's not just one person sitting there. So again, with these operating the tool, thinking about the way it would be done, a workshop would be much, because each person specializes in a step along the way. You're not constantly changing your tool, and again, not being comfortable with it. If you're really used to something, you get really, really good at it. And but what's important is this scene here at the top. There's also another one in regards to stone vessel making. But again, we see this vase being made and that tool. And again, we see, but notice how it's tied together, strapped together. So the handle and the weight can be disconnected and attached to a new drill head, a new drill bit. So there's a simple illustration, and you can see they got we'll come to that. That one later, but also in that same image from Rekhmire's tomb, you can see that these stone vessels are being worked. Now, people say that this is pottery. I would say absolutely not. It's not pottery, because you don't work pottery like this. It would break. This is a working stone. Here's another illustration. Two workers, again, notice they're sitting down. Now we see the shape of the weight is a bit more regular, instead of that half spherical shape. And also the way that they're holding it is an important one. And again, another really important feature about Egypt, firstly, donkeys. Donkeys were used widely for pre-dynastic cultures, seem to have made jewelry, these types of things, revering donkeys in a way, as where dynastic Egyptians barely pictured them at all. The idea being that this animal was somehow unclean, or whatever the term was, but they were using them, but we find them very rarely depicted. The same with work people in Egypt. You see all of the carvings, paintings have all that typical scenery, but workmen, the trades, don't get much of a job, at which point it's worth bringing up something called the Satire of the Trades, which is an ancient Egyptian writing, and it's satire of the trades. It's it might be the father, or at least the master, teaching an apprentice scribe, and he's pointing out that all the trades have that they're horrible jobs, and they're always tired, dirty, smelly, and they do always, and that he's very lucky to be a scribe. Then the later part talks about his responsibilities as a bureaucrat, because a scribe was not just a writer; he was essentially an important part of a public servant, part of the administration, as where workers seem to be, and it's not too different now, looked down upon, even though they subsidise all those other ones. All right, Tomb of Two Sculptors, another important one, for a number of reasons. Now that's the photo, but now let's look at there's a few interesting things going on here. Firstly, let's look at the bottom here, and the illustration shows it a bit clearer. Now, in the Satire of the Trades, he talks about some translations will say the jeweler is spinning his drill all day to drill beads. Well, the beads such as that will made those jewelry pieces. Again, there's this one piece of lapis lazuli that has a small hole drilled in it. It's said to be evidence of lost ancient technology, while there are pieces of jewelry with thousands of beads on, or hundreds, maybe some have even 1,000 beads on there, all with tiny little holes that were drilled in the very hard substance. And the first part is, and there are other similar photos. This is a guy drilling his beads, and notice he has 3 shafts at once. So with a bow drill, you can operate multiple drills at one time. But back to the vase making, because we see the vases depicted here, and we see that same tool, but notice the lugs. So the other vase, but they don't have the lugs on them. Well, okay, but this has lugs on there, so boo-hoo. All right, here's another depiction which has, at least we see the drill and the drill bit, and how these can be used. So how do you hollow these things out? Again, notice it's an attachment drill. So again, and we see a standing worker using a similar type of tool to drill those. Now, at this point, I'll show you. There's a interesting, a paper here that goes into it. I'll try to remember to put the links in this as well. So we have the bow drill, but now we have the drill bits, including the bits and pieces. Now we see again that crank handle drill. He mentions here 920, you can even look up. But there's an example. Again, the drill bit is upside down, but notice how it has those divots on the side, so a fork branch can be stuck in there to hold it in place. And notice the lines on there as well. And I'm guessing that's 500. Okay, no, that's so these the drills, the parts have been found. When it comes to criticism, will be no copper drills have been found. Well, we found copper residue inside drill cores, also with corundum in those. Now, Dennis Stocks, I believe, mentions one copper tube that was found. Well, there have been, again, many copper tubes that were found, because this will, in the jewelry they make these tiny, fine little copper tubes, copper tube making it's the most basic part of how would a copper worker do it? Well, you either get a sheet and you roll it around and you've got a tube, or you could cast one. It's very simple, like coppersmith day one type levels. Now, again, we see other types of tools and that have been found in there. Why are no copper tubes have been found? Well, because copper was extremely valuable. Leave a house abandoned for a few months and see how much copper is left over. It's still very valuable now. Okay, so there you go. There's a brief. There are pictures of these vases being made going back way ago, and so with this method, again, I've done the individual pieces of the experiments to make a precise stone vessel, very precise stone vessel. I just need to put the time in and put all those pieces together because it still takes time, but I'm going to do it very fast. You know, I don't have months of my time to do it, so I have to limit the number of hours. In there again, I've done the experiments, I've shown the cutting rates, I've shown all the other features, polishing, parallels, making a perfect circle out of an imperfect tube. It's done. It's up to the people are just asking the questions to maybe get involved just a little bit, just a little bit. If you want answers, if you're just asking questions, then you got to get involved in regards to these things. And you'll learn a lot. I did. I'm sure you can too. All right. So yeah, these things exist. They exist in the very old time. So a common excuse would be, "Well, no, but these are all pre-dynastic, and all the ones later were lower quality." This is just a bunch of nonsense anyway. But that's it. These are in there. Putting it out there now because I'm getting back into the experiments making these and I've already made a few pieces, but in terms of a hollowed out the necked vases, yeah, I can do it. The only thing I haven't done an experiment is make the lug handles, which again I believe very simple thing to do actually, and to make them very nice as well. What I've said that I would do in the past I've done, and I've presented it. No one's bothered to replicate it. They sort of just pretend it doesn't exist, or in some cases still now they're still Chris Dunn, Uncharted X are still lying about the fact that the replicas don't match the older ones. Well, they do, and if they were any doubt, they could make their own replicas and then do the scans and then compare them to, for instance, core number 7. But this won't happen. It's always other people's responsibility to do their homework for them. I'm not just like opposed to lost ancient high technology, because I just don't believe, everything they say is just incorrect. It can't be lifted, it can't be cut, it can't be this. It's all been, it shouldn't have even need to have been proven, because it's already being practiced still now. It's just we've got a electric motor rather than a hand-driven tool to do those types of things. Same with stone cutting, lifting, moving. But it's the techniques that they use and the deflections as well. You can't move a giant stone, and you show someone moving a giant, but I want to see a 50-ton stone moved uphill. This is the kind of tricks they use, and unfortunately their followers buy into this nonsense. And in essence, it's entitlement and it's denial of responsibility. It's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, it's like anyway. Look, here's these things. I'll put the list to the experiments that I've done before, which they still won't acknowledge, and then it'll be, we'll do this now, and then do this now. Eventually, they want you to build a pyramid or a Serapeum box, and I'll give you $25,000 for it when you couldn't even buy the stone for twice that price. But all right. Anyway, enough for rambling. The drills, they exist. Links in the description. Yeah, at some point these lost tech types, you gotta maybe this isn't the right words for this new world, but you got man up, grow a set of balls, do some work. With that, SGD, cheers, and have a good one.